With the University of Calgary and his own consultancy, PK Verliger, we welcome Phil Verliger. Great to have you here, sir, from Denver.
Tom, it's great to be back again.
The gasoline price goes up, and up. This phrase, demand destruction, I don't remember that in my oil economics studies. What does demand destruction actually mean?
I don't remember it in my economic studies either. What the people who use the term mean is that use of gasoline is going down a little bit as prices go up. That's not surprising. We've known that for 50 years.
But we've got to sustain
There's nothing out of the ordinary.
Right. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It's completely normal. Here's the chart. Let's bring it up. And the summer season is here. This is a little away from what Phil Verliger does, but it's at $4 gasoline. And down it came, and up we go. Ken Pruitt said this morning, $3.80 something a gallon. Is this time different, Phil Verliger? Are we going to see that point like we see over on the upper right? Or are we going to see a more sustained higher price this time around?
I think we're going to probably see a more higher sustained price if global economic activity continues going as it's been going. Crude oil prices are being driven not by the price of gasoline, but by the price of distillate, which is the fuel that's used around the world. And as I've talked about in the past, and you and I have talked about, the world is moving towards a cleaner distillate, and it's hard to make. And as economic activity picks up and as distillate demand picks up, particularly for diesel, that pulls up the prices of light sweet crudes, and the OPEC countries just restrict the output of the sour crudes, and so crude prices go up. So I think we're going to see a good deal higher prices going forward this summer if the economic activity continues to pick up. Now, there's one thing that came out overnight, and that's in Japan. It looks like oil use in Japan has really dropped substantially. Inventories were up, production was down, which means that the earthquake has had a much larger impact, and you'd really call that demand destruction, just like the tsunami was destruction of the economy. And if that's gone down, that could actually give us a moderation in the price increase.
How much of the recent surge is that fear, whether it's Libya or that destruction in Japan? I'm hearing from most people a large part of this is a one-off jump. I mean, we go back to what on Brent? Do we get back to 100 Brent from 122?
I don't think we get back to 100 Brent from 122 until we get some refineries reconstructed to make more diesel fuel. And that's 2 or 3 years down the road. Unless we could go back down again if the global economy slows. Now, higher oil prices aren't going to slow the global economy. Bernanke's written several papers on this as an academic, that oil prices don't really do much to the economy. What could slow the economy, though, is the tsunami effect on logistical chains from Japan. If that really brought economic activity down in China and the United States, then we get back down to Brent at 120, maybe 100, maybe even below.
Nicely framed. Phil, I want to go back to this idea of there's different types of oil. This is what you do best. This idea of Libya oil is not the same as Saudi oil. For Asia, for Japan, for China, where are they getting that best distillate product? Where are they getting the best kind of oil they need?
Well, Japan, demand has been dropping, and Japan's refiners are very sophisticated. They're designed to get the distillate out of the Saudi Arabian crude. And if you build a refinery and you spend enough capital, you can do it. China's in a different situation. China's got growing demand, and they have relatively simple refineries. So what China does is look for the sweet crude like Libya. They get it out of Angola. They get it out of Nigeria. China is going for the same kinds of crude oil that European refiners are going for. And that, if China's economic activity picks up, and if they go ahead next year with the requirements to reduce sulfur, they're going to be out there competing for those sweet crudes, and they're really going to push these prices up.
I'm afraid to ask, what is the quality of United States refiners? Are we like China or are we like Japan?
No, we're actually ahead of Japan. The United States refineries, particularly down on the Gulf Coast, are the best in the world. they can take old overshoes and make gasoline out of it. I mean, literally, the really big refineries. They can coke. They have everything they need down there to take the really crappy crude and make good products. The Exxon, the Valeros, the Motiva, which is a joint venture with Saudi Aramco and Shell, is putting in numerous facilities. Marathon's Gary, Louisiana refinery is going to be a high-end distillate producer. Just like Silicon Valley, the Gulf Coast is really the center of the world's best refining capacity.
We just saw some B-roll, folks. That's Rex on an oil rig. That was his job before he was there he is. There's Rex working the oil rig right now. Let's look at this chart, Phil. Here, the Dakotas to the rescue. Everybody, we need to find oil. Nobody expected it to come from the Dakotas. Here's oil production and a little bit of a pickup recently in U.S. oil production. Phil Verliger, how much can we actually improve our oil production on a barrels per day basis?
We probably, over the next 5 years, can get an extra 1 million barrels a day out of these new areas, maybe more. I mean, if you go back 30 years ago, President Carter's energy secretary told us we wouldn't be producing any gas in 2010, and here we are, we're drowning in natural gas because of new technology. Again, it's American technology that's really pushing us ahead to find more oil and find more gas. And so I'm not quite sure what the limit is up in the Balkans in the Dakotas, but there's a lot of oil there, and I think we're finding oil now down here in Colorado too.
Phil Verliger with us, folks, with PK Verliger Associates. Phil, you mentioned natural gas, and we're up to our eyeballs. Bring up the chart here, and I'm fascinated with what you think here. I've seen a lot of essays, a lot of op-eds, really suggesting Boone Pickens is onto something here, and we've got to become a nat gas nation. How do we do that?
Well, the first area we're going to become a natural gas nation is in electric power generation. Natural gas power plants can be much smaller. You can distribute them, and given the fact we haven't built out the grid, it looks like we'll have a number of smaller local small generation plants put in. The second thing, I think, though, is going to be in fleet use. I was at a conference last week in Montreal speaking and talked about the possibility of using it in transportation. And several people approached me afterwards and said that a number of companies with delivery vans are talking about putting natural gas in their delivery vans because natural gas today is about 60 cents a gallon versus the crude oil component in gasoline is $3 a gallon. And that's just a huge savings. And as Herb Stein once said, things that if something can't last, it won't. And this gap has got to close. The other thing we're going to see with natural gas is the revival of American chemical industries. Many plants down on the Gulf Coast were closed as gas prices rose. Back in the 60s, we used to have a big natural gas exporting business in the form of petrochemicals. Now China and Taiwan and so on have got that business, but they're dealing with much higher costs than our companies. And so this is a competitive advantage to reduce our trade deficit. So to answer your question, to become a natural gas nation, we're going to be using it in power generation. That reduces global warming gas emissions. It's quicker to build the gas generators, and we'll use it in transportation, and we're going to use it in chemicals.
That's just brilliant. 30 seconds, Phil.
All of it's going to help the economy.
What's taking so long? Just in 30 seconds, why is it taking so long to get it going at 60 cents a gallon?
Because if you look at the price, oil declined in 2009, and so that natural gas's advantage went away during the recession. And we're just moving back forward into this. And I think that it's a long-term investment question. And a lot of firms have to be sure that, in fact, they're going to see this advantage for many years to come. Mm-hmm. And, in fact, given the way futures markets are working and everything, I think they can now see it. It just takes time.
Right. Let's leave it there. Phil Verliger, brilliant. Thank you so much on nat gas and on oil.
PBN, for news that affects America. Join us on our live show at pushbacknow.com.